it's time to play ball.
Welcome to the Silver Sluggers, the most well-informed over 50 baseball group in the country that will never forget names like Hank Aaron, Willie McCovey, and Reggie Jackson, who all wore number 44. Today's meeting marks number 444. This matches the career doubles total for Andres Galarraga and George Burns. No, not that George Burns, who was married to Gracie Allen. Before Rich reviews the birthdays and this state and baseball information, Vince Russo will lead us and take me out to the ball game. Today's discussion topics will include the following. Number one, Chris Gallo will review the teams who might have improved themselves the most in the postseason. Number two, Rich will run down the 10 teams who spent the most money in the offseason. Number three, Sluggers will be asked to give their opinion for the 2021 pennant races. Number four, Rich will discuss the experimental rules being used this year in the minor leagues that might be adopted in the major leagues in the future. At the same time, the Sluggers will be asked to give their opinions. We will wrap up the session with a 5-player mystery photo quiz. Now, here's your host, the last year's rules consultant for the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers, Rich Marazzi.
Thank you, Bob. You sound like you're on your A game. Very good. Very good. Can we all clap for Bob? Very good. By the way, you can keep your mics muted until you want to ask a question. If you want to keep it open, you can. Just make sure there's no background noise in your homes, okay? Otherwise, feel free anytime you have a question or a comment to unmute. And if Nicole can recognize you, she will call on you. If not, just don't be afraid to interject when there's nobody talking, okay? So try to be as open as you can. As Mel Allen would say, hello, everybody, and welcome back to Silver Sluggers. This is our first virtual meeting ever. So this is historic. Meeting number 444, the first time we've ever met, we'll say virtually. So before we do anything else, let's get it started like we always have done in the past with Vince Russo singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." Go ahead, Vince.
Okay, thank you, Rich. I don't know if I can do it without your grandson to help me.
He's in school now anyway.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, let's go. Nellie Kelly loved baseball games, knew the players, knew all their names. You could see her there every day, shout hooray when they'd play. Her boyfriend by the name of Joe said to Coney Isle, dear, let's go.
Go.
Then Nellie started to fret and pout, and to him I heard her shout, take me out to the ball game, take me out with the crowd, buy me something and back. I don't care if I never get back to root for the Yankees if they don't win. It's a shame. For it's 1, 2, 3 straight and the old ball game.
Good.
Harry Carey just called and said you're all out of the ballpark.
That worked very good. Thanks. All right, let's get the meeting going. And first of all, as I always do, a few birthdays today. There's not many big nostalgic names today with birthdays, but Trey Mancini, who's going to be a very interesting story this year for the Baltimore Orioles, he turns 29 today. He missed last season because he was undergoing treatment for colon cancer, you might recall. And I think he'll be a great human interest story this year. So follow Trey Mancini, the Baltimore Orioles ball player, and see how he does. JT Realmuto, the catcher who signed a 5-year contract for $500,000. He's 30 years old today. You might recall Scott Podsednik with the Chicago White Sox. He's 45. Now, a couple of things with regard to this date in baseball history today. 1942, March 1842, 2 black players, Jackie Robinson and Nate Moreland, who you've probably never heard of, requested a tryout with the Chicago White Sox during spring training at Pasadena, California. Manager Jimmy Dykes allowed the two to work out, but later dismissed them. 1958, March 18th, 1958, in a move to change their image, the Dodgers announced that clown Emmett Kelly will not perform in 1958. How many of you remember Emmett Kelly? Wow. Look at Bob Ahern with those palm trees in the background. Wow, that's pretty good. In 1985, Commissioner Peter Uberoth reinstates Hall of Famers Willie Mays and Mickey Mantle, who had been banned from association with organized baseball by Bowie Kuhn due to their employment by the Atlantic City casinos. You guys remember when that happened, when they reinstated, first of all, they banned Mantle and Mays, then they reinstated them. Okay, now let's go to Chris Gallo, who's doing a short report basically on the teams who probably gained the most in the off season based on who they picked up via free agency or trades. So Chris will do that. And following that, we're going to look at a list of teams, the top 10 teams who spent the most money in the off season. So this will sort of give us an idea of what to look ahead for in a couple.
So the big question, if you're going to talk about who are the winners this winter, everybody I'm sure has an opinion. I'm going to base my selection. I have my top five, and my selection based on who filled the teams that filled the most holes on their roster or add the most depth. To me, those are the winners. And number one are the San Diego Padres. Trades for Blake Snell, Yu Darvish, Joe Musgrove give Padres one of the best rotations in Major League Baseball, and they did it without losing any of their best prospects. And they have the number 3 ranked minor league system in Major League Baseball. Then when you add that on top of an already talented lineup with guys like, Tatis, Machado, Trent Grisham, Tommy Pham, and Eric Hosmer, and then they signed KBO, a Korean baseball star, Ha-Seong Kim, and re-signed Jurickson Profar. They've got a lot of firepower to match up against the best team in the National League, the LA Dodgers. So they're number one. Number two, and I don't know if Rob Wilson's here, but I'm a little bit of a Mets fan along with him. I think the Mets came in number two this winter. The trade for Francisco Lindor and Carlos Carrasco was certainly the blockbuster of the winter, giving Mets fans what they had hoped for after Steve Cohen purchased the team. In addition to signings of James McCann, Trevor May, Joey Lucchesi, Jonathan Villar, Albert Almora, and Aaron Loup significantly upgrade their roster. Finally, the re-signing of Marcus Stroman, I think, was just icing on the cake. And so now we get Thor, Noah Syndergaard, back by mid-season as expected. Well, what can I say? I think the Mets really did well. And after all the decades of disappointments with the Wilpons, it was a great winter for Mets fans, even without the acquisition of either Trevor Bauer, George Springer, or Jackie Bradley Jr., as so many had hoped. They're clearly a much better team than they were at the end of last year. And under the PECOTA ratings, they're projected to win the National League East. And I would expect nothing less than the Kings of Queens. Number three, I look at this as a two-way tie between Toronto Blue Jays and Chicago White Sox. And I'm going to take a look at the Blue Jays first. Their big move was, getting the best, who I think the best center fielder in baseball is, George Springer, bringing him to Canada if they ever get to play a game in Canada. He will lead a resurgent Blue Jays lineup with young stars Vlad Guerrero Jr., Bo Bichette, and Kevin Biggio. And then they also signed shortstop Marcus Semien, who not only improves their defense, but adds another solid offensive player to the lineup. The Blue Jays also added some depth at starting pitcher with the trade for Steven Matz signing of Steven Matz and Robbie Ray, and bringing in solid closer Kirby Yates. They also have a great minor league system, number 4 ranked in Major League Baseball. And so if any of these guys falter, they have a few good young players who can fill the gap if they need to. The real challenge that they face will be competing with the powerful Yankees for the American League East title. The White Sox traded for Lance Lynn, who added another level to an already strong starting pitching core led by Lucas Giolito and Dallas Keuchel. And then they signed closer Liam Hendriks, who I believe is the best, or if not one of the best closer in baseball. They brought him into Chicago South Side. And then the hiring of Tony La Russa as the manager, I thought was probably the biggest surprise of the winter in terms of just an unusual signing. but he may just be what the team needs to win the AL Central this year. My fifth team is the Dodgers. You know, everybody thought the Dodgers were pretty much loaded after their World Series victory last year. But then, you know, we all think again, and what did they do? They went out and signed Trevor Bauer. And he adds, you know, to the already deep and strong starting pitchers from last year's championship team. And it's not like the Dodgers need another starting pitcher, but he was clearly the best free agent starting pitcher on the market this winter. And the Dodgers snuck him past the Yankees, Mets, maybe the Angels, and a few other teams who are looking for starting pitching help. And I wasn't surprised at all by Bauer going with the Dodgers. He grew up, he was born and raised in Hollywood, California, you know, probably just miles away from Dodger Stadium. So he's going back home. The concern I have with the Dodgers, they lost three players that I thought had a key role that they played last year in their championship season. Kiki Hernandez, Jock Peterson, and Pedro Baez were very productive. They went out in free agency and signed elsewhere. But the good news is, once again, the Dodgers have a great minor league system. They seem to just bring up these young guys all the time. Their minor league system is ranked number 9 in baseball, so they should be just fine. Some of the other honorable mention teams with strong offseasons include the Cardinals, who added Nolan Arenado, the Yankees, who brought back TJ LeMahieu and signed starting pitchers Corey Kluber and Jameson Taillon, and then 3 NL East teams: the Braves, who brought in Charlie Morton and Drew Smyly while retaining Marcell Ozuna, the Nationals, who added Josh Bell, Kyle Schwarber, and Brad Hand, but lost one of their signees, John Lester, to surgery now, and the Phillies, who re-signed T.T. Realmuto and Didi Gregorius while adding a whole bunch of pitchers. And my final word is, while the Red Sox may not have made a big splash this winter with talent acquisition, I believe that bringing back Alex Cora to manage the team was an excellent move and will greatly improve the Sox in 2021. Those are my thoughts.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. And I see in the background there is the book you wrote, Unlikely Champions, Miracle at Williamsport, about the 1989 Trauma Little League team. And we're all very proud of you. Thank you very much for that very insightful report. Okay, now I'm going to go to the top 10 spending teams in the offseason. And Nicole is going to be using a PowerPoint as we go through this. And we're going to start, first of all, with the Toronto Blue Jays, who spent $186.25 million in the offseason. Here we go now. Here you'll see the signings and in the players' names. So here we go. All right, and you can, if you don't see the entire screen because it's blocked out with some pictures on the side, you can get some idea yourself here. But actually, Springer was the big Simon. But I think Marcus Semien is a great player. I think he's going to add a lot to the Blue Jays. I think if their starting pitching develops, they're going to be okay. But they're in a competitive division. I still think the Yankees are probably going to be the team to beat in that division. But they are spending money up there, and as Chris mentioned, though, we're not sure where they're going to play. I think they're going to start their season in Florida, in their spring training base. So they won't be in Canada for a while. So we'll have to see how that affects them. Next, we have the Phillies. You see the 5-year contract that the catcher signed, JT Realmuto, no doubt the best catcher in the game, $115.5 million. Didi, a 2-year contract for $28 million. And you can see they're basically some of the main signings for the Philadelphia Phillies. Once again, the Phillies had probably the worst bullpen, and one of the worst bullpens, and not only last year, but in baseball history. The Phillies are really in trouble with bullpen depth. So that's what they really need to work on down there. And I know Joe Girardi was brought in, but he can't work miracles. As I've said often in the past, you have to have chicken to make chicken salad. And that's true for Joe Girardi or anybody else. The Dodgers, they're not shy about the luxury tax threshold. They spent $158.25 million, and they brought in Trevor Bauer for 3 years at $102, amazing, 3 years, $102 million. And here's a guy who I think he's shown that he's got good postseason pedigree, but he's still young, and a lot of people would debate, is he really worth that kind of money? There's no doubt his personality is a little bit eccentric, but that's okay. There have been a lot of eccentric ball players over the years who were outstanding players. I don't worry about that. But they also signed Tommy Kahnle, the former Yankee, as you can see, for 2 years at 4.75. And that'll bolster the Dodgers bullpen once again, if he's healthy. The Mets, their big signing, of course, earlier was a deal, of course, was a Lindor. But here you see James McCann, outstanding catcher, 4-year, $40 million. He hasn't been kind of an everyday catcher, though, in a while. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does as regard to how often that the Mets play him, how often that they use him. But anyway, but I think, though, I think that the Mets probably signed the best position player in baseball this year in Lindor. Did not have a good year last year, but last year was a truncated season with the 60-game schedule, with the COVID restrictions and all the other stuff. So I discount almost anything that happened last year. I think I don't think we could really put our finger on anything because it wasn't a full season. All right, Nicole, if you scroll down a little bit to number 5 and so on, if you go back, that's it. The Yankees, they signed, I think the Yankees wanted LeMahieu. They got him for 6 years and $90 million. At his age, I think possibly that they should get at least 3 or 4 good years out of him. Of course, he can always play first base, can always DH. I think it was a good signing. I think it was a must signing for the Yankees. They picked up Corey Kluber once again. Guys like Kluber and so forth, Darren O'Day, Justin Wilson, especially a guy like Kluber coming off of surgery, he could be a box of chocolates. And the Yankee starting staff is that way. Now, Herman is looking very good in spring training. And also, Montgomery pitched 5 innings yesterday, I think, of shutout ball. He's looking good, but it's spring training. It's hard to put your finger on anything, but once again, if the Yankee pitching staff pitch to the backside of their baseball card, they're going to be pretty good. However, that's a big if. We saw Chapman last year in the postseason again implode. You wonder what kind of confidence the Yankees have in their bullpen. I know prior to this year, that's what anybody ever talked about the Yankees was how actually good there was a bullpen was. You don't hear about that too much anymore. I think part of it is because I think of Chapman's postseason failure. The Atlanta Braves signed Marcell Ozuna to a 4-year, $65 million contract. Charlie Morton for 1 year. Those are 2 big signings. Also, Drew Smyly. I know our good friend Jimmy Duplessis will be happy about that, and one of our big Braves fans there. So they're going to be a very competitive team. I mean, they've really got some great young outfield talent, as you well know, and they might be the team to beat in the National League East. I don't know. It's going to be a great division, I think, the NL East. Then you got the Houston Astros, $72.35 million. Signed Michael Brantley to a 2-year contract. They signed Jake Odorizzi, I think was a good sign. They signed Pedro Baez. These teams will have a different look this year. Once again, we've got to wait and see, basically, once they get in action, actually how everything unfolds and so forth. But we'll see. As Chris Gallo mentioned about Liam Hendricks going to the White Sox, 4 years, $54 million. Adam Meaton, 1 year, $7 million. And so forth. They're an upcoming team, as we very well know. He mentioned Giolito, who will lead a pitching staff out there. A new manager this year in Tony La Russa. And so we'll see what happens. And if Tony La Russa does well at his age, we all have a chance, guys. It isn't over for us yet, right? We're still in the game.
Right.
Okay. All right. Let's finish up with numbers 9 and 10, Nicole, and just scroll down a little bit, and that's it. The Giants out there where Ray DeAngelis is in that area out there. Kevin Gausman, 1 year. Tommy La Stella, 3 years. Jake McGee, a good pitcher in DeScalfani. I think they've got a pitching staff that's going to be interesting to see. I think most of their pitchers are going to be free agents after this year, so we'll have to watch that. And the Milwaukee Brewers, Jackie Bradley Jr. The Red Sox lost Jackie Bradley, signed 2 years with the Brewers for $24 million. Colton Wong, the former Cardinal, 2 years, $18 million, a good ball player. So anyway, those are the major signings that we can see. These are the teams that have spent the most money in the offseason. But once again, it isn't always about the money. It's always about the trades and, of course, avoiding injury. Now, before we go any further, do any sluggers out there have any comments about their picks for this season and the reason why? Anybody out there want to step to the plate right now? Sluggers back in. Anybody have any comments about the pennant races? You can unmute yourself if you do.
Rich,
Yeah.
yesterday, Jimmy Owens
Hi, Jim.
and Kershaw had the same speed of the fastball. So they're gonna look at Kershaw for a while. So
That's right. Jimmy's a longtime Dodger fan.
yeah, he didn't hit 90, I don't think, yesterday.
Okay.
So he got hit pretty good by the Brewers. That's it.
Well, I think it's a good point. I think the Dodgers definitely are the favorites. I think the Dodgers on paper should win it all on paper. The game is not played on paper, and things happen as we know. And you get a World Series. I mean, we know baseball history, most sluggers. I mean, look in 1954 when the Indians had that great season, 111 wins, and got swept by the Giants in the postseason. So once you get to a short season series, anything could happen, as we well know. For the long run, though, the Dodgers are a good bet. If I was a betting man, I think you'd put your money probably for the Dodgers in the long run. But in a short series, I still think, even though they're favored, it's a different ball game in the short series. Who else has a comment about this coming season? Anybody else?
Hey, Rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a Red Sox fan, I only have 3 words for the Red Sox: rebuild, rebuild, rebuild.
Be patient.
I think it's going to be a tough season for us this year, but hopefully we'll keep getting better.
Well, I think Rodriguez is going to start the opening game right this year. I saw yesterday. I think Eddie Rodriguez is going to start their opening game, and a lot depends too on how Sale comes back, right?
Yeah.
What kind of condition he's going to be in. But don't forget, the Red Sox can still score runs. They've got still a pretty, I think, potent offensive lineup. They got the good third baseman, okay, Devers. They got Bogarts. I mean, these guys aren't chopped liver either. So, I think once again, when the Red Sox and Yankees play, there's always that great competitive feeling, that rivalry. And I'll never forget years ago, Jim Alerich said to me after the first few games of the season, and one team had like maybe a 5-1 lead on the other team at that point after 6 games. He said, you know what? At the end of the season, it'll probably be 10-8 either way, or maybe 9-9. That's the way it unfolds, regardless of the records they have for the season. So that's just the way the game is. Who else has a question, by the way, or a comment? Anybody else?
Rich, the Oakland A's. Don't forget the Oakland A's. They're better than ever. And they may have a new ballpark coming soon. So keep an eye on the A's again. They always put a great product out there. And again, they're going to be just as good.
I agree. The A's are always a very dangerous team. They usually have a bunch of no names, but they got the great third baseman. Look, they're a good team. Everybody knows that. And Billy Beane does a great job out there.
And a good manager. Melvin's a good manager.
Melvin's a great manager. And I think that the A's are always going to be a threat. The skinny on the A's is that, well, yeah, they get into the postseason, but then what do? I was sent out there 2 years ago with ESPN to cover the wild card game. And I really loved the atmosphere at the Oakland Coliseum. Loud. I never heard a baseball crowd like that. And you're really loud out there. So I think if once again, I don't know how many people are going to be able to put in the ballpark. So Ray, what is the rule now in California as regard to how many people can be put into a public ballpark? Do you know what percentage?
It's changing because we're opening up more. That I know. So
okay.
Most communities that are opening, is getting up there is going to be a lot better. So they're looking forward to having more people in the ballparks.
I know the basketball arenas are about 20% now, 30%, I think.
Yeah, the Chase where the Warriors play has opened up now. That should be happening this coming week.
And good luck this week to the UConn Huskies, the men and women, right?
Oh, yes.
We can't forget the Huskies. Anybody else have a comment?
I was just going to say, Rich.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
Texas Rangers. They're opening the full ballpark on opening day, just for opening day.
Yeah.
The capacity, well, Texas is open anyway, and they've been a little resistant, and it's been like, Texas and Mississippi. So that's kind of weird. They're going to scale it back on the second game, so they won't have a full complement of people in the seats. But that even that first game, it's like it makes me scratch my head and see what those people are thinking down there.
Oh, I think I'm not a scientist, but I think being outdoors, I think lessens the chance for infection. But being that close to so many people, I agree, Joe. There are concerns. I would imagine it'll all be required to wear a mask inside the ballpark. I would think so, but I don't know for sure. But I know down there is a Wild West in Texas, and
Yeah.
anything could happen down there. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see too that if the people, let's say they get 50,000 at that game, we'll say using round numbers. If there'll be a surge in the infection in Texas following that. And as you know, what we have to worry about now are these variants too.
Right.
These new variants are popping up, and one popped up in California this week, and that's the scary part too. Fortunately, they believe that the vaccinations will be helpful with the variants, but once again, though, I think they're taking a hell of a risk opening up that ballpark to full capacity opening day. But you know what? Business is business, and that's the way it is. What can I tell you? Business is business. Anybody else?
No mask requirement in Texas, Rich.
No mask requirement in Texas. Hey, how you doing? Was it Frank?
Yeah.
Frank, how you doing?
Doing good.
So there's no mask requirement even at the ballpark?
Not at no one's going to be required to wear a mask.
Oh, wow. I think that is silly. I really do. I really do. Now, once again, I don't know what the chances are of an infection rate is sitting close to someone side by side, but most people will be sitting near with their families, but you're going to be around, you're going to be around, you're going to strangers. Then you got the lines at the vendors. People going to get hot dogs and beer, and all the lines people are back to back. I think it's very dangerous. You wouldn't find me in there. I'll tell you that. What anybody else, you wouldn't find me in there. Hey, good to see you again, Frank. Okay, anybody else? Any comments? Wow, it's good to see you guys
Can you
again.
hear me, Rich?
Yes, I do.
Rich, Bill. Bill,
Hey, Bill, how you doing?
Rich?
Sure.
I'm doing good. I still just can't get over the Mets. Here's a guy worth $14 billion running the team, and they didn't want to go $25 million extra for George Springer. I think that was a big mistake. I mean, what he makes an interest in one day, if you compute all the money that he has and the value of his equity, he'd make that up in a day. I don't understand why they didn't take George Springer. To me, up the middle is critical for a baseball team. Best center field in baseball, center fielder. I think that's going to come back to hurt him.
They made a pitch at him, I believe, right? But
I don't think he wanted to come.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
No. The word on the street was he wanted to come to the Mets. I read that in 4 or 5 different places.
Well, don't forget, Toronto's got a few UConn players up there. Plus, they got Pete Walker, the UConn pitching coach. I don't know if that meant anything, but I do see what your point, Bill, is that Cohen is a very wealthy guy. And I don't know if I don't know all his business dealings, how he has his business. You're a businessman. You know better than most people how you have to compartmentalize your investments in different areas and what your tax situation is. I don't really know, but I do see, looking at it from the outside in, that you would naturally say, why didn't Cohen do something? I don't really know.
Yeah.
Okay, anybody else?
I'm competing.
Yeah. What's that?
Rich, Mr. Falzone is looking to talk.
Okay, John, good seeing you.
Good to see you. Good to see all of you guys. I do believe the Springer didn't want to come because Cohen did offer him the most money. There must have been a reason why he didn't pick them. I couldn't say why, but I'm excited because of the catcher and Lindor. I think McCann's going to make a big difference with the pitching staff. And I think they're finally going to have hopefully they're going to have a consistent shortstop. That's just my 2 cents.
John, let's put it this way. You mentioned about the Mets. How much what was Cohen's offer compared to the Blue Jays? Do you remember?
I don't, but I think it was, I thought I heard 130 million, but I could be wrong.
And what did the Blue Jays offer?
I don't know, but it was less than the Mets.
Yeah, well, the Blue
I
Jays.
heard that the Blue Jays was 25 million more with the Blue Jays.
Well, you know what it might have been too, Billy. It might have been the fact that they gave Springer 6 years with the Blue Jays. Maybe the Mets didn't want to get. I think that's what it might have been.
That might have been it.
I don't think the Mets wanted to go 6 years. I think that was a sticking point.
That's my point, though. With all that money, what the hell's the difference? I mean, if you're worth $14 billion, you can make that in not even a day, in 10 minutes. It makes up 25 million. Now, if you compute those dollars,
He could also lose it too, though, right?
Well, he did. He had a little problem along the way there. That might have influenced it too. He had to come up with a couple of $1 billion to
That's
save
right.
his friend.
So you never know. It's easy for us to
I think
spend
that
someone
was
else. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I imagine if the S&P stays where it is, he'll be okay. But we'll see. Very good. Anybody else have any comments? This is good.
I got a comment.
Sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think Houston still
Hey,
looking
Jim.
pretty good.
Yeah.
They, returning players like Altuve and starting pitching that is really solid. I expect them to finish, top on the American League West.
They're a good team, and I think they're a team to watch. Dusty Baker is a calming effect. And Jim, who do you have on your Wax Museum show this weekend? Do you have a show this week?
Well, the show is basically planned, and since it's the first day of spring, we're going to be hearing a lot of spring songs,
Okay.
including a version of "When the Red Red Robin Comes Bobbing Along" by Dion and the Belmonts.
I love it. So if anybody wants to hear Jimmy, if anybody wants to hear your show, Jim Santa Barbara, how can they hear it?
Well, we're basically Hartford based, but if you don't live in the Hartford area, you can pick us up on our website, wesufm.org.
wesufm.org. So if you're a doo-wop fan, here's the guy you want to go to right now. Very good. Jim Santa Barbara. Okay, very good. Any other comments about the upcoming season? I see you people are really into it. It's good. Anything else? Okay, then let's go to the next item on the agenda. And we'll look at some of the experimental rules that we're going to see this year in the minor leagues that you're probably going to see that you can see at some time in the future in the major leagues. Okay, so if we just scroll down, okay, now if you look at the experimental rules, all right, first of all, AAA, I think can you keep going down a little farther, or is this it, Nicole? Oh, there we go. That's a AAA. Now, what they're going to do in AAA is to reduce player injuries and collisions. The size of the first, second, third base will be increased from 15 inches to 18 inches. Now, think about that for a second. The bases are going to be they're going to be increased 3 inches square. So it's going to be an 18-inch base versus 15. Now, if you're running from home to first, this means that first base is going to be a little bit closer than it normally has been in the past. Each base will be a little bit closer for the base runner. If you're taking a lead off first base and you're going to second base, you're going to reach second base a fraction sooner than you would in the past. The idea of the rule is to get more running in the game again, you see, to get more people on base. For instance, the batter runner can reach base more often on infield hits, that kind of thing. So what do you guys think about this? Anybody have any comments about that? Do you think it's a good idea? Should the major leagues adopt this in the future? Any ideas? Frank, did you have an idea? Okay, let's go to the next one. AA. Okay, this is going to be used in AA this year. The defensive team must have a minimum of 4 players on the infield, each of whom must have both feet completely in front of the outer boundary of the infield dirt. Doesn't mean that you can't shift, though. You can still shift. Depending on the preliminary results of the experimental rule change, MLB may require 2 infielders to be positioned entirely on each side of second base. Okay? And once again, that's something that people have talked about now for a while. They believe that the shifts, once again, has slowed down the game offensively. And so what MLB is trying to do here is they are trying to do everything they can to get more offense in the game. All right? To get more offense in the game. And so by doing this, they feel it's possible. Anybody have any comments about this? Okay.
Yeah, hey, Rich, I have a thought.
Sure. Go ahead.
I really think that this is a rule that will move forward after they do this experiment, because the batting average, if you look at the batting average stats over the last 5 years or so for left-handed batters, it's down. And so I think this will have a big impact on offense, especially for left-handed hitters. I mean, there's little doubt in my mind. And I think that I don't know that they'll do the 2 infielders on each side of second base, but I think they will definitely make the guy stay on the infield dirt. And I think it'll help from a point of view of scoring and everything.
Well, you
I
know, when the
agree.
game, there are people who said, well, the batters should adjust to this. The batters can bunt all day down the third baseline, okay? That kind of stuff, okay? If there's a shift. When the game was invented, though, I wasn't born then, either were you. But when the game was invented, the idea was to put somebody at first base, someone at second base, shortstop, and third base for a reason, I think. And they had the outfielders, okay? And I think the game was invented for that reason, to have different gaps in the infield and outfield that would be advantageous to the offense, possibly, you see? Now, there's no doubt about it that matter of fact, Ted Williams said himself that the shift probably cost him 20 points in his career batting average.
Right.
And I always wondered if Ted Williams would say that. He retired in 1960. Why did it take 50, 60 years for people to get the idea that a shift is effective? I mean, he's not the only one people shift. They shifted on Mickey Mantle. They shifted on other players. All I'm saying is that when the game was invented, think about it for a second. The game was, I don't think anybody ever thought about shifts. I don't think anybody ever thought about putting 3 or 4 people on one side of one base or bringing an outfielder in to play in the infield. I think the idea was to open the field for possibly offensive reasons. I don't know. I wasn't there. But just think about that. Let's go to the next one. It says a high step-off rule. Pitchers are required, this is going to be in high A, by the way, okay, step-off rule. Pitchers will be required to disengage the rubber prior to throwing to any base with penalty of a balk in the event the pitcher fails to comply. So if you're in your set position and your foot's on the rubber and you throw to a base, you now must have to disengage the rubber, step back off the rubber to, we'll say, throw to the base. You only get 2 throws. Now you get a third throw, okay, if you pick the runner off. If you don't pick the runner off, then it's a balk. You get a third throw, but if you don't pick a runner, it gets a balk. What this does is, once again, it encourages more base stealing. You see, because now the runner can get a better idea looking at the, we'll say, pitcher's pivot foot on the rubber as regard to his release. So once again, all of these moves basically that we were talking about basically are to increase, more offense. Then we go to the low A Southeast, okay? It says, in addition to the system limitations on step-off balks, MLB will be testing the automatic ball strike system that we saw last year in the Independent League. And a couple of years ago, we had Chris Ekstrand down, okay? And John, forgot John's last name, 2 guys who umpired in the Independent League. They were not in favor at that time of the automatic strike zone. I think we're a few years away from this, but don't be surprised that when MLB negotiates the next collective bargaining agreement for 2022, that could be an issue. That can be an issue. All right. In other words, MLB might say, for instance, or it could be a case, well, if the National League wants DH, then we want to put in the automatic strike zone technology. You see? That could be an issue for the 2022 bargaining. Or they might say we will experiment with it for a couple of years, and by 2025, if it works, then we'll make it permanent. This is on the table. There is no doubt about that. You see, okay. And it says also for low A, for the low A West area, okay, limitations on step off pickoffs. So talk about pace of game rules and that kind of thing. And we don't need to get into that now, but pace of game is also going to be a thing. You know, my opinion is, I think if the ball players get in the habit of staying in the batter's box, it's all about habit. If the pitchers get in the habit of just getting the ball, getting their sign, all right. And by the way, I've seen, I don't know how, if it ever come to a fruition, but I've seen this idea of this technology where when the catcher gives his sign right now, there's a way of blocking it out where nobody could see it. You see, in other words, people in the ballpark can see it basically, or the pitcher can see it. But if you're trying to pick it off with say, binoculars or some kind of other technology, it can be blocked. This I have not seen talked about further. Maybe it's not yet perfected, but that'll be a very interesting concept. That will now give pitchers and catchers more confidence that no one's stealing their signs, and so pitchers won't keep changing the pitch and that kind of thing. Once again, it's the idea is to improve pace of game. Okay, throughout the minor league system for their kids in low A, and so as they come up, such as just probably stepping off the rubber, you must step back off the rubber, things like that. I mean, all we did here today is really scratch the surface. Okay, but that's I basically did. Does anybody have any questions about any of the rule stuff that we just saw? Any kind of questions? You saw that great steal of home play in the World Series with Margot, and wisely, was it Kiermaier stepped back because the pitcher Kershaw stepped back off the rubber, and he did not throw as a pitcher home. He threw as a fielder. So if Kiermaier hit that ball, that'd be interference. You cannot hit a ball that's thrown as a fielder. You see? So that's it. Any questions?
Rich,
Yes.
Bob Ellis.
Hey, Bob.
To be honest with it, it happened too quick, but on that ball four, then the balk,
Yeah.
you'd have to tell me what I was looking for because it happened so quickly. It just looked like a pitch to me.
Well, once again, most of those plays, Bob, that you see like that, almost all of them, in the umpire's judgment, I use the word judgment, he did not make a discernible stop, you see? And usually when a play follows a balk, it's because of that, okay? It's in other words, if the pitcher throws to a base, the ball is not dead until either the fielder catches the ball or the play stops in general if he doesn't catch the ball. But when he delivers to the batter, see, a lot of people think that when a pitcher balks, the batter can never get first base. That's not true. If the batter walks and everybody gets one base with the walk because they're forced, then you honor the pitch as ball four. So there's got to be a runner on first and second, or first, second, and third. If it's just, say, second and third, for instance, you would just do the balk because everybody's not forced, you see, okay? Everybody's got to be forced. It's a very unusual situation, but most major league managers do not know that rule. And if the umpires fall asleep on it, because it seldom happens, the manager must be aware that he can go out there and tell him, wait a minute, that's a ball four balk, but because everybody advanced one base, you honor in other words, you honor the ball four. You forget about the balk. You see, as long as, for instance, if there's a runner on first and third, it's no good because the runner on third with ball four cannot advance, right? It's got to be first, second, and third, whatever, okay? Or even just first, because that allows everybody to advance one base.
Rich.
Oh, yeah.
Jim, I've never seen a ball called because a pitcher dropped the ball. Never seen that. Is that,
you saw it today?
Yeah. Is that coupled with foot changing or taking your foot off the rubber, or is it just a matter of dropping the ball?
Well, first of all, a pitcher could, for instance, drop the ball intentionally if he thinks a runner is making a break. Now, the pitcher's foot is on the rubber there, you see? So when you got your foot on the rubber, you never do anything like that because it could be deceiving to the runner. So a pitcher could purposely drop the ball, okay, and the umpire might, and the runner might take off. It's deception. That's why it's a bad habit. Yet pitchers don't realize this. Now, if the pitcher is straddling the rubber, his foot is in back of the rubber, that's okay. You see, but once you're on the rubber, now it creates a standard. You are now a pitcher and not a fielder. And you pull stuff like that, it's no good. So a young kid who's got a bad habit out of high school or college who's doing stuff like that shouldn't be doing it. And that's where I come in as a rules consultant. Tell them don't do that stuff. So when they see a major league pitcher being called for a balk, I think it's effective. Okay. All right, now let's go back in time a little bit here. I know most of you people are over 60, I think. You'll recognize some of these people. We're going to show you 5 different players. I'll give you hints for each player and see if you could identify the photo, and that'll be the last thing that we will do today. All right, let's go to photo number 1. Photo number 1. We'll go back to we're on exhibit 5, I guess, Nicole. Okay. This, by the way, photo number 1, this man was a 21-game winner for the Yankees from every year from 1949 to 1951. Hank never won a game. Okay, here he is. Here's photo number 1. Okay, and don't shout out the name yet. After we get done with the clues, somebody knows who it is. You can just try to chime in. This guy won 21 games each year now from 49 to 51. And as a Yankee, he won 120 games, lost 50. He finished his career with the Cardinals and the A's, by the way, and he gave up Hank Aaron's first home run. Show the other photos on for number 1. Here he is again. Great matter of fact, Yogi Berra told me if there was a game 7, he's the guy he wants on the mound. Keep it going. He was called the Springfield Rifle.
I got it.
Okay. What's his name?
Vic Rashi.
Vic Rashi. Wow, you guys are on top of your game. There he is as a Cardinal. You probably never saw this photo before. As a Cardinal. And as a Cardinal, he gave up Hank Aaron's first home run ever. Very good. That'd been 1954. Okay. And here's his 1952 Bowman baseball card.
Huh.
With the facsimile autograph underneath. I love that set. Okay, now we go to photo number 2. This man was one of the greatest pitchers in Red Sox history. They said that left-handers could not pitch in Fenway Park or don't throw them there. But this guy was 70-30 as a
Mel Parnell.
Mel Parnell. Mel Parnell. You got it.
Parnell.
In 1949, he won 25 games and lost 7, led the American League that year, and also in appearances. My friend Don was at Fenway Park in 1956, and he pitched a no-hitter against the White Sox. Mel Parnell, very good.
Mel Parnell was also a broadcaster.
That's right. He did for a while with the Red Sox. You're right, Vince.
Right.
And
Rich, I wasn't even
Louisiana.
born when any of these guys were playing, you know?
What's that?
I said, I wasn't born when these guys played. So you got to get some guys a little bit, more recent.
Right, Chris.
Yo, we got a couple. All right, go on to the next one. And you can skip the next, just keep going. Okay. All right, there we go. We just already blew. That's all right. This guy, you remember the Dodgers in the 50s? They had that swinging door of left fielders, okay? There was, okay. They did Sandy Amoros, Gene Hermansky, and this guy. And they called him Handy Andy. What's his name?
Andy Pafko.
That's right. That's right.
I think I remember him, Pavko, playing for the Tigers at the end of his career.
Is that right?
Didn't he play for the Tigers?
I don't think so.
Remember, I can tell you this, though. He
Played for the Braves.
He played for 3 different teams that went to the World Series: the 45 Cubs, the 52 Dodgers, and the 57-58 Braves. So he went to 3. Okay, here's number 4. This guy in 1954 for the Giants went 21-7. Okay, and he beat Early Win in Game 2. He was originally signed by the old Boston Braves for $65,000. Who is he?
Johnny Antonelli.
Johnny Antonelli went into the tire business in Rochester. There he is, Johnny Antonelli. You know, when he was signed as a kid with the Braves, there was a lot of resentment. He was signed for $65,000 in 48, and a lot of the Braves veterans were taken by this. That this guy wasn't even proven yet. He's making all this money. Okay, down here, there's another picture of Johnny. Nice guy. He just passed away the past year or so. All right, here's the last one. Okay.
Choo-choo Coleman.
Choo-choo Coleman.
Choo-choo Coleman, you got it. Okay, Gallo, is that good enough for you? Were you born then? 62? I think so.
62.
Yeah. Anyway, he hit the first home run in Mets history, but it came in a spring training game, so it doesn't count. All right. And he got, can anybody tell me where he got the nickname Choo Choo? Anybody know? When he was in high school, he was a very fast runner. And I guess throughout his career, he could run, even though he was a catcher, and he can run like a train. That's why they call him Choo Choo. Well, that's it, guys, for today. And I thought it was a fun session this morning.
It was.
I want to thank all of you who made a contribution. I want to thank Vince for singing, for Bob for his introductions, and I want to thank Nicole Signoli for all their coordinating for this. And great job. So I will be in touch with you people over the next day or two with another Slugger email. And by the way, in the next email, you're going to read a story about an umpire named Bill McGowan. You got to read this piece. It was done by a person who wrote an article for Society for American Baseball Research. Very, very colorful stuff. And anyway, have a good day, everybody.
Thanks, Rich.
Yes, John.
Thanks, Rich.
Okay.
Take care,
Thank
all.
you, everyone. Thank you, Rich.
Right.
Very
Thank
nice.
you.